Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker. Be back in just two short moments. Bear with me, folks. I've had a bit of a Skype hiccup here. Give me 2 moments and I will be back with you all. Stand by, everyone. We will get there. Hang on till I find this now. Okay, if you're listening out there on YouTube, stand by, folks. We'll be with you in just 2 short seconds. Just need to reconnect the guest. If I can find it. What a nightmare. Trust Skype to do all this tonight. Here we go. We'll quit that there. We'll load up Skype again. Bear with me, folks. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. Okay. Okay, stand by, folks. Stand by. We're getting there. Okay, we are back. We are live. Sorry about that, everyone out there. I'm your host, Kev Baker. I want to welcome you back to another week of live shows right here on The Kev Baker Show on Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com. And it's going to be a really special show today because unbeknown to me, and I hope we can get there because my Skype has just crashed again. Let me just reconnect the Skype, folks. We're having a real issue with the Skype tonight. You can see me sweating here. I'm starting to flap, okay? Give me 2 seconds. Right, restart. Quit Skype. Task Manager. We'll get in there, make sure there's no Skype pings kicking about. Yeah, like I was saying, this is going to be a really special show tonight, if we can get it up and running, because today's guest was informing me just earlier on that this is going to be our 50th show together today. So I really hope we can get this all lined up now. I've got no update to get, so we'll come back in here. There we go. We're back live on TFR. And hopefully, keep your fingers crossed out there, folks. I'm going to try and add in today's guest. Let's see if we can get that happening now. So yeah, like I was saying earlier on today, I was made aware of the fact that this is a big landmark show, because this is going to be the 50th show that we've had with my very good friend, Mr. Ben Emlyn-Jones. And I think you heard him arriving onto the scene there. And for anyone who hasn't heard of Ben before, Ben is the guy that runs the website called Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. Or you can shorten that down, it's nice and snappy, HIPANWO. Now, Ben is an author. He's a researcher, he's a public speaker, and he likes to cover all of the topics that we cover commonly and frequently right here on KBS. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, it's a website dedicated to the latest news, views, and reviews from the world of government cover-ups, ghosts, UFOs, hospital porters, paranormal investigation, cryptozoology, hidden knowledge, forbidden history, archaeology, chemtrails, and a whole lot more on top of that as well. And like I say, 50 shows. Ben is one of the few guests that I can say I have met physically in the real world as well. We both attended a UFO conference up here in Scotland a couple of years back. Ben stayed overnight with our good friend Johnny Whistles. And that's why I was really kind of bowled over today when Ben mentioned to me that this is our 50 not out. So Ben, if you want to click your camera on for me, and I'll welcome you on to the show, sir. How you doing, man?
I'm fine, Kev. It's great to be back on the show for the 50th time. Sorry about the technical problems just now. I'm on the line now. I wasn't sure which button to press, but I'm here now. It's great to be back. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. I'm very well. I think you'll find, though, probably when it comes to Skype glitches and things, that's usually my doing. I take the blame for all of that, dude. I've had a glitchy Skype for a while now. But we're here. We're live. And like I say, 50 episodes together, Ben. I mean, I don't know. I've had Nano Girl. She's a very regular guest, but not in recent times. Charlie Robinson in recent times. Anthony Patch, I think, is the only person who I've done more shows with as a special guest. So I'm really, really stoked you're here today. And we've got so much to get into, dude.
Yeah, that's right. It's been an exciting few weeks, hasn't it?
It really has. It's been a really eventful few weeks as well. I'm that run down. I've still got a big sty on my eye. So in case you think I've been punched or I'm wearing makeup, it's all good, Ben. It's all good. But as the show progresses, we're going to get into some of the trolling that we've incurred lately, just because we dare to cover a certain story in the UK. We're also going to take a look at the latest shenanigans from the Nevada desert, Area 51. But before we get there, dude, Alistair Crowley said to me today, Kev, let's talk about Boleskine House. So Ben, talk to me. Boleskine House, man.
Yeah, we've covered this subject before on the show, but a lot's happened since the last program. There's been another fire there. Now, there was a big fire there in 2015. It was consumed by a huge fire, which destroyed about 80% or so of the house. Well, a few weeks ago, there was another fire, which basically finished the job, got rid of all the rest of it. Now, what's interesting about this, it's sad. I'm sorry this has happened, and I feel sorry for the owners, and I hope they can maybe, I was going to say repair, but really rebuild it. I mean, the brickwork's still there, the foundations, it's can be rebuilt. You just need everything else new, like a roof and windows and plaster and everything. But the reason Boleskine House is interesting is it's this low white building that stands on the shores of Loch Ness. And between 1899 and 1916, on and off, it was the home of one Alistair Crowley, the Beast 666, as he called himself. This occultist who did all kinds of things in magic terms.
And Ben, as you're reading this, what people will be seeing on the video is what I think could be the last ever footage of Boleskine House before the second fire. So yeah, this was Alistair Crowley's house, like you said, the Beast 666. Take us back into it, man.
Yeah, it's he lived there on and off. In 1899, he bought the house because he wanted somewhere private and out of the way. And in those days, there was no main road going along in that area there is now. And he wanted to perform the Abramelin working, which is a magic spell. It takes a number of weeks to perform, I think. It's quite complicated. And he started doing it, but he was halfway through doing this spell, and he received an urgent message from his solicitor announcing that he was being sued by some former members of the Order of the Golden Dawn. And so he basically bolted from the house to Paris to sort out this legal problem that he'd incurred, but he never finished the spell. And for this reason, ever since that day, for 120 years, that house has had a very dark reputation, because you don't finish these spells, you can often leave. It's essentially like opening a door. You open a door to other worlds where all kinds of things live, and at the end of the spell you close the door, you give the beings license to depart, the denizens of the other world, then you close the door behind them. It's like a portal, a stargate in spiritual supernatural terms. And this is open. It has been open ever since, and all kinds of things have happened in that building. It's what's attracted Jimmy Page, the rock star, big fan of Crowley. He bought the house, used it as his collection of books. But as we've said on previous shows, there's possibly, I think it's quite likely, a connection between Crowley's activities and the fires which have destroyed the house. Certainly the first one, because in the 2015 fire, because you went to Boleskine House after that fire, and what you discovered there was really quite extraordinary. The way the fire damage appeared to be, there was none of the scorching you got on the undamaged part. It was almost like spontaneous human combustion, where there's a very intense destruction and there's a sharp dividing line, and on the other side of it there's just things undamaged. And you also, I remember you were quite frightened because you encountered some strange sounds and things like that in there. So I really do think that this fire, certainly the first fire, maybe this new one now, is connected to Crowley. The police.
Now, Ben, you were saying to me that there was maybe some speculation as to who had started these fires, right?
The police are investigating it as an arson attack. They believe that some people are involved in doing it. Some people travelled to this remote location just to torch it. And it's been suggested in some media outlets that radical Christians are responsible for it. Now, I know in Scotland you have a bit of a tradition with the Weed Free Church and things like that, but
Oh, especially up that way. Yeah, not so
yeah,
much
in
in
the
recent,
Highlands area.
not so much in recent times, though, Ben. I must admit.
I was going to ask you this because is that still the case? Because I didn't think it was still the case because things have calmed down a bit now. I
Yeah.
mean, it's of course there are some people who do feel uncomfortable having Aleister Crowley's house in their area, but I mean the religious fundamentalism, of course, can drive people to commit violence. But most of that seems to be coming from Islam at the moment. It doesn't seem there's any of the kind of torch and pitchfork type pogroms that
Well, as you can
you used to
imagine,
get.
I've got like extensive notes on this place myself, personal interest because of that local connection. But I'll give you a run through a kind of timeline of things that I've noted down today. In Boleskine, the land itself, I find this really interesting because originally, Ben, it was a church parish which had been set up by the Church of Rome when they first came to the Highlands. Then that was around the time of the 13th century. We fast forward to the 1760s, and Boleskine House was built by Archibald Fraser. Now, he was an important man in his time as well because he was the government consul to Tripoli and Algiers. And the Fraser family, very infamous, they were involved in the Battle of Culloden. And that basically signified the end of the Jacobite uprising against the English. And then Crowley, we come forward to the time of Crowley. And he bought it in 1899 for £2,000. Now, £2,000 in our money doesn't sound like a lot, but at the time, it was actually 2 times the market value that he paid for this property. Now, Crowley bought the place because of its location. It was perfect to do that Abramelin working that Ben mentioned. And the other name for that is the summoning of the Holy Guardian Angel. Now, for people out there who might think, well, this is just an old property, it's nothing to do with Aleister Crowley, you guys are stretching things. I want you to consider this because in one of his writings, Aleister Crowley told his followers to focus their spiritual intent in its direction. And he said, quote, "In the direction of Boleskine, which is situated on the southeastern shore of Loch Ness, 2 miles east of Foyers, is a shrine or a high altar." Now we fast forward to the 70s. Jimmy Page, he buys it. He's obviously famous. Led Zeppelin. 1992, he ended up selling it to Ronald and Annette McGilvery. They opened a guest house. And then after her husband passed on, Annette sold it to a private buyer. Now that brings us up to April 2019, when the Boleskine land was split into 4 lots. Now 3 unnamed, or they were unnamed, we'll get to that in a moment, buyers got together and they purchased 3 of the lots, which include the house. And then on August the 23rd, get this folks, it was granted charitable status by the Scottish Charities Organisation. And then one other thing I found out today, which was quite interesting and very relevant, Ben, to what we're talking about here today. And it was back in 1904 in Aleister Crowley's book, The Book of the Law. He wrote this: "But your holy place shall be untouched throughout the centuries, though with fire and sword it be burnt down and shattered, yet an invisible house there stand within." So it's almost as if he prophesied the destruction by fire of this property.
That is extraordinary. That is really extraordinary, Kev, that he actually said that at the time, all that time ago.
Now, if people are wondering where I got this from, and you'll find this particularly interesting as well, Ben, it all comes from, I'm just going to turn off this video here. It's a website called the Boleskine House Foundation. And this is the group that is responsible for the restoration of Boleskine House. And it says here, "Welcome to the official website. Here you will find information on the history, the legacy, and ongoing restoration project for Boleskine and its estate." So for the first time today, I found out who the owners were. And these are all kind of legalese people, Ben, when you start to actually get into who owns it here. And it's not opening up. Hang on.
It's interesting that it's just 3 days ago that this new property arrangement was made.
Yeah, we've got
That's
this
interesting.
here. First owner is Kyra Reedy or Reddy, and she's the purchaser of lot 1 and 3 of the Boleskine estate, and she's a London-based lawyer with more than 15 years of experience. We've got another gentleman here, Keith Reddy, possibly her husband. He's a founder and trustee. Says Keith has built a successful career across several fields, including property management, property development, logistics, and hospitality. He's also an accomplished academic, specializing in history and comparative religion. And he brings to the foundation more than 15 years in hotel management. And the last trustee is Mark Lidster. Mark has spent nearly 3 decades working with restoration of historical listed buildings in the United Kingdom. Now, there was one person I found interesting, Ben, connected to this. And it's this person here. This is one of the contributing team. And his name is Andrew Curley. Nothing against Andrew or anything like that, but get this. Andrew graduated in law in 1989 and has spent his life working in intelligence in a number of specialist roles. After retiring as a spook in 2014, he has dedicated much of his time to pursuing his interest in intellectual and spiritual pursuits. A bibliophile and avid collector of literature, what he's going to do is he's going to be setting up the library at Boleskine.
That is incredibly interesting. I mean, you say retired as a spook. Do you ever retire?
You don't ever retire, Ben. No,
you said that about Anjum Chowdhury. I remember when we discussed him. This interesting collection of people, and obviously, like, it's clear from the kinds of people who bought it and what their professions are and their interests that they do plan to resurrect the house, to restore it. In my view, I mean, I wish them luck. Honestly, I do. I hate for anything to go wrong with that. But in my view, the spiritual issue to do with the house has to be solved in order to prevent more of these fires breaking out again, because I believe the fire may have been started by it's part of the general spookiness and woo-ness of that particular area. And
it's so busy, Ben, as well, because even when we were up there, I mean, that was us. We were random people visiting the property out of the blue, and we pumped into 4 other people with exactly the same idea on the same day as we were leaving. So there's been a lot of activity there, a lot of youngsters, a lot of beer cans, a lot of drinking. So, anything could have gone on, really.
Right, well, I certainly wouldn't get, drinking and things like that in an area like that is very bad, because if you turn up, alcohol intoxication is a way of letting your own spiritual defenses down. But in my view, the Abramelin working has to be sorted out. What Crowley did, the damage Crowley did, has to be repaired, which means someone who knows what they're doing, possibly Jimmy Page, if he's listening, needs to go there and really close the open Stargate that's in that area, if Stargate is the correct word. I actually set up a Facebook group. It wasn't actually my idea. It was a friend of mine called Jana on Facebook, but she suggested I do it. But set up a Facebook group called Exorcise Boleskine House, and it was basically suggesting, it was all about possibly arranging some kind of spiritual healing process or operation to be done at that house before any building work is done. I do recommend to the new owners that something like that is sorted out. And the guy, the spook, retired spook, since he has an interest in these sort of things, he may have already thought of that. So hopefully he will.
It's an interesting crew, isn't it? And my eyes nearly popped out today when I seen the intelligence connection. And Andrew, if you end up listening to this show, absolutely no harm to you, fella. Nothing at all. It's just we find that kind of thing interesting. And of course, Crowley himself was rumoured to be, at least passing information to spooks. And you have to think, Ben, right? Here's the weird kind of connection, because with all the parties and the sex parties and sex magic and people he was rubbing shoulders with back in the day, there's almost an eerie connection to some of the stuff that's coming to light in the news nowadays, right? With blackmail rings and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, Aleister Crowley almost certainly was an intelligence asset, and we don't know it. There's no positive evidence, but we know from his connections, from his background, going to Trinity College, which has always been a hotbed of spying, and the Cambridge spies, for example. It's always been a recruiting ground for intelligence agencies from all over the world, from various different countries have looked for agents and assets there. We know also that Crowley travelled a lot. This was an age where people didn't travel as much as they do today. And Crowley travelled an awful lot, even by today's standards. He was a real globetrotter. He went around the world several times. He liked climbing mountains. He spent a lot of time in India, the Himalayas. Someone who did that would also have been considered for recruitment. We also know that even though he was very rich, in his later life he came down with some financial troubles. He got into debt and basically he blew the family fortune on his activities. And so he'd have been interested in looking for another way of making money. And of course, very often when you are picked up by these various agencies, one thing they do is they offer you a little fee in return for services rendered. So that's another reason to suspect he probably was an intelligence agent. And this guy Andrew, well, I'd be curious to talk to him actually and find out what he knows. He probably knows Uri Geller. He's that kind of person.
Probably,
so,
man. Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, you've like spoke to people that are well versed in the paranormal things like that, Ben. I'm not sure if you've been on any kind of paranormal investigations yourself, but I mean, this location, I mean, this has to be one of the key locations. You called it a Stargate. We can call it a portal. We can call it a thinning of the veil. But there's something definitely still to this day that you can feel energetically. And somebody in the chat room also said that, the whole Great Glen, Loch Ness, etc., very, very supernaturally charged with energies, dude.
Yep, there's a huge number of UFO sightings in that area. I know that for certain. In fact, it's got the highest concentration in the world, I believe, of UFO reports. I know Scotland as a country does. And Scotland also is probably the most paranormal country in the world. And Scotland, of course, also has a lot of violence in its history. Now, all countries have violence in the history, but in Scotland, you can't hardly walk a mile without coming across the scene of some battlefield or a massacre or something like that. So that's another reason, I think. And of course, that's just in addition to what Crowley was doing there. And Crowley's not the only magician or occultist who's actually been to Scotland and has made Scotland a base of operations. So yeah, it's Scotland is, I think, woo-woo central, as you might say, of the world.
Need to get you back up here, dude. Me and you need to go up to Boleskine House. We'll storm one of the ceremonies. It's the in thing to go storming places nowadays, right? So we'll hashtag storm Boleskine.
Yeah, that's what gave Jana the idea for exercise Boleskine. She says, well, instead of storm, you can have exercise. Because there was a joke page, a storm Loch Ness. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
Storm Area 51 thing broke out. There was a storm Loch Ness.
Now, there's been a lot of talk as well. Loch Ness. There was scientists who came over taking DNA samples, and they were giving us a big build-up to a big fanfare. And they were saying that out of the 4 possibilities, and I think, we've got the plesiosaur, we've got big sturgeon, there was another couple listed. And what the scientists were saying was, we think we can definitely rule out 3 of these. And then they left it kind of open-ended. But I was reading on Mysterious Universe the other day. The announcement is meant to be made in September. And the scientists are not very forthcoming. And they're not exactly continuing the initial hype that they had in the first place. So whether this will narrow down what Nessie is or isn't, does it exist in the first place? I'm not very confident, Ben. I'm not confident, man.
No, I mean, this is I saw this. It's interesting that they had done these DNA specimens, these DNA samples, but it's not going to be conclusive. I mean, they may discover all kinds of remains and things like that on pieces and bits all over the loch, but you need as Malcolm Robinson was saying, because he designed a Nessie. He designed a thing to catch a DNA sample from a living Nessie by essentially firing a kind of dart into the creature's hide, which would collect essentially a biopsy from the creature itself. That, I think, is the only real way you can get a proper analysis from what I've heard. I'm not a geneticist, but that's what I've heard.
Now, we're almost coming up on the break, and when we come back, I'll let Ben tell you where you can keep up with all of his work. And, of course, this is just the first of many shows this week here on KBS. I'll let you know when we line up some more guests for the week. I'm just waiting on a couple of people getting back to me. And we'll be back after these short messages. There we go. And of course, everyone on YouTube, we know we're still here, folks. We didn't forget about you. I want to apologize to everyone out there. I don't know what was going on with Skype at the start, Ben. My whole screen went white, and then I couldn't hear anything. So we're back now, though. We're back now.
I'm glad. Yeah, I just saw that. I saw that the Skype was still up, and I could see like there was a call in progress. But then it was also prompting me to take another call, and I thought, and eventually I realised I had to press the.
We've got Alien Girl in the chat room says Crowley was brilliant, and this is it. You get two camps. You'll get people who think Crowley the most evil man on earth, and you'll get the other half of the divide saying that he was a good dude. Where do you fall on it, Ben?
I'm not sure if I have an opinion of Crowley on an ethical level. I mean, whether he was good or bad, I really don't know. I read a biography of him. It was called A Magic Life, and the author was called Martin Booth. And it's supposedly supposed to be the only unbiased biography of Crowley, because all the others are either demonizing him or glorifying him. He himself wrote an autobiography which made him out, because he was extremely narcissistic. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. He believed he was the Antichrist, essentially, and he still believes he was kind of the person who'd come to. He said, when people will say that I gave birth to the 20th century or something like that, he was very much a megalomaniac, quite frankly. But I don't recall him actually doing anything particularly bad. I mean, he's rather like Rasputin. I think he's a hedonist. He's
I think he was quite promiscuous. Happy. I think he was quite happy to have this kind of notoriety. I think he kind of built up a lot of it himself. Yeah, I mean, wasn't he the guy that dubbed himself the evil, like the Beast 666 or something?
That was his own name for himself, and he loved it. He adored the fact that people were shocked by him.
Crazy,
and he was crazy. I mean, he would go to orgies. He was bisexual, and he would have more than one partner at a time. He was and he used to take all kinds of drugs. He used to get drunk and things like that, take all kinds of drugs. He was very like Rasputin, the great Grigory Rasputin, the mad monk of Russia.
Well, this house now, they're going to spend 730,000 to get it restored to its Georgian and Jacobean original kind of work.
I suspect that's a bargain, really, considering there's really nothing left there except the brickwork and the foundation.
And they bought it. It cost them 500,000 to buy. Dang, dude.
I mean, if they turn it into a hotel, because like one of them is into hotel, is a hotel expert. It could be successful. I think the previous owners were thinking of doing something like this and setting it up as a special place for people like us, people into spooky stuff, special ghost-themed hotels.
It sounds like this is going to be almost like a Crowley theme park, because they're going to
I'll go spend the night there.
Yeah, they're going to celebrate like the Thelema tradition and holidays, and they're going to teach his kind of work, stuff like that. It's definitely going to provide us with a lot to talk about going into the future. I can assure you of that, Ben.
I'd go and get a room there, Kev. I really would. I mean, I probably wouldn't sleep. I probably wouldn't sleep during the night. But
I don't know if I'd go back there to sleep. Oh hell no! Oh hell no, dude!
I wouldn't be able to resist the. It was just fascinating me so much. I'd be willing to take the risk. I wouldn't be able to resist.
Okay, we're getting ready to come back on to TFR now, folks. So stand by. Stand by. Here we go. We're getting ready. Oh, the anticipation. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker. I've got big Ben Emlyn-Jones with me today, and we are 50, not out. No, we're not 50 years old. Don't be daft. Look at the two of us. We're not a day over 25 each, right? Right, but Ben, before we get back into this today, my good friend, let people know where they can keep up with your plethora of work, because you're like maybe more viral than I am on the internet. You're everywhere.
I've got a huge Google footprint, and a lot of it comes from my websites. Hospital Reporters Against the New World Order. There's Hapanmo Voice, which is my main news site, and I've got a YouTube channel. I'm a radio show host like yourself, and I'm an author, and I've written some good books about UFOs and crash retrievals in Area 51. The Roswell trilogy, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, and its 2 sequels. So check those out. You'll love them if you like UFOs and things like that.
Well, you gave me a really, really easy kind of segue into Area 51 there. But
Ah,
before we
yes.
get there, I've got a question from my very good friend from Canada. Very, very good friend from Canada. Can you ask Ben what his interpretations or opinion is of "do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law"? And of course, that's the Crowley mantra, right?
This is the basis of the will of the Thelema. This is religion he created. Do what thou wilt. And he says, do what you want. I'm afraid I don't know. I mean, it could be interpreted several ways. I mean, I'm sure, like, it could be seen as from a sort of libertarian capitalist point of view, as some kind of political statement. But it could also, I think it's quite likely to be a rebellion against his own upbringing, because Crowley himself was he was born in Leamington Spa in Warwickshire, and his parents were brewers. His father ran a brewery, and he was a member of the Plymouth Brethren, which was I think it still is actually. There are a few left actually, radical Christian sect, and in a sense, everything Crowley did with his own spiritual practices was almost a parody of what he had experienced as a child growing up, the religious indoctrination he experienced as a child. So I expect "do that thou wilt shall be the whole of the law" is kind of almost a slap in the face of "thou shalt have no God but myself," and all the other things from the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not worship false idols and all that kind of thing. So I mean, as far as the more details go, I don't know. I can only guess, but I only know this from reading the Martin Booth's book about him, which is fascinating.
It would depend, of course, on somebody's individual belief systems, their biases, how they interpret "do what thou wilt." For me, if I drop everything by the wayside and just look at that without knowing where it came from as well, and it's hard to do, but it's almost like a statement, a declaration of exercising free will.
It could be seen as something positive in that way. Yes,
Yeah.
It could be. At the same time, though, I mean, it could also be seen as a form of amorality. If do what you want rather than do what you believe is right, because what you may want to do something which you know is morally wrong.
Yeah.
And this Thelema is saying, well, just do what you want anyway and forget the morality of it.
To hell with it. Go for it.
Yeah, it could be. Now, that's not an unusual idea. I mean, in a sense, that's the kind of pseudo-psychopathic behavior is very common everywhere in society anyway. So it's not really quite very radical, and I don't think Crowley deserves to be condemned.
No.
Simply for saying that. If you condemn him, you might as well condemn most other people.
And one thing I've learned is that history, his story, sometimes gets skewed, and all we've got to go on with Crowley is usually people demonizing him, right? I mean, obviously you get people who follow his stuff who'll speak in glowing terms of him, but from my personal perspective, growing up in Fort Augustus as well, just a few miles from where this guy's house was, he was like the scary monster that you would scare kids with, right, to get to bed early, or the ghost of Crowley's going to come and get you. So right away you've got these kind of barriers put up at any time that Crowley's mentioned.
He would have been a very, very strange guy to meet. I mean, he died in 1947, a long time ago, but he's got these amazing staring eyes and this incredible face. He had this big bald head. I mean, he looked a bit like me, really, in that sense. And his voice was kind of like he had this. There's a couple of recordings of his voice that he made at the Abbey of Thelema in Sheffield, and funnily enough, he's got quite a feminine sort of voice. But he was incredibly intelligent. I mean, he's a chess master and mountaineer as well as an occultist. He could play like 3 separate games of chess at the same time. He'd like have 3 tables around him. He'd play 3 different people at chess simultaneously. He's incredible. I mean, despite his rather strange looks and the fact that he got very sort of like flabby and wrinkly later on, he was irresistible to women and men. They found him sexually irresistible. And he was, like I said, he was not fussy about who or what he had as a sexual partner. I mean, some of the stories that came out of Thelema, Cefalu are quite things I wouldn't repeat on the air, quite frankly. And he
Of course, you see all the kind of the Hollywood and musical elite. A lot of them are into the works of Crowley. I often talk about when Peaches Geldof unfortunately passed away. And I was reading an article about her personal book collection, which was kind of floor to ceiling Aleister Crowley, all of his works.
You know, I mean, compared to what some of the stories you hear coming out of the modern world, it's what Crowley did was fairly innocuous. I mean, if you look at like Epstein and all these people and Harvey Weinstein and the things that were talked about at pool parties in Hollywood, one thing he said about Crowley was he had sex, but he had sex with consenting adults. He didn't, as far as I know, abuse any minors. He didn't commit any acts of rape, as far as I know. So really, in a sense, he didn't do any. Like again, he's rather like Rasputin in that respect. He never really did anything particularly immoral, in my view, from what I can see. It's unless you consider sexual excess absolutely immoral. I mean, you may consider it disgusting and degenerate, but immoral means something which breaches like treat others as you would treat yourself and things like that. As far as I know, Crowley never did that. If you really didn't want to sleep with him, you could just say so, and he'd shrug his shoulders and say, "All right."
Yeah, and we've got somebody in the chat room who said that you were the first time this guy had given an interview. Dave Altman.
Oh, Dave. Hi, Dave. I know Dave. Yeah. He's been on my show. He's a very interesting guy talking about UFOs.
Oh, we like the UFOs.
So, and thanks for listening, Dave.
Yeah,
thanks for tuning in.
Since this is like the 50th anniversary, or our 50th get-together, we're going to add in somebody else now who's been a very, very big part of this relationship. If he answers his call, of course. Johnny Whistles.
I hope you try that.
Yeah, Johnny Whistles is going to be joining us today, and obviously I can't get his camera fitted in right now, but Johnny, welcome to the show, man. 50th episode with Big Ben.
How you doing, guys?
Hi, good. Johnny.
How you doing, man?
Doing fine, Kev. Thanks very much. Good to see you guys.
You too, mate. Yeah.
Been a while.
So, 50th show with Ben today, Whistles.
Oh, wow. Ben.
Goes quick, doesn't it?
Eh?
No, yeah, I know.
A long time, buddy.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so we were getting into Boleskine house whistles. Are you going to go and stay a night there when it's all done up into a hotel?
Kev, do you know the thing about that? When I seen that story, when I seen your video and I seen like the pictures that were shown of the house, there didn't look much left to go on fire.
There was still, like the video as well, you'll see like the first bit of the house we went to was the bit where Crowley done the magic. And as Ben was saying, when the first footage we had got from there, and you see it in this footage as well, but there's a line where the fire stopped and it left like living room and a bedroom totally untouched. And the rest of the place looked like ground zero. That was the best way I could describe it to anyone. The second fire, it took out that remaining bit of the property. Part of me, suspicious Kev, says insurance job. Maybe not so much insurance, but easier to build from scratch than to probably build onto what was left. I don't know, dude. It's a weird place. I've had my kind of experiences there, paranormal activity, if you will. I don't know if I'd be willing to sign up for a week's holiday, a week's spiritual retreat at the old home of Crowley Whistles, but that's just me.
No, it's not a place I would want to go, Kev, because as I say, Crowley, do you know what I mean? He's been described as one of the worst people in the world, do you know what I mean? So why would you want to go and stay anywhere where that man has been?
Well, we're trying to give Crowley not the benefit, but when it comes to him being the most evil in the world, I mean, there again, it was him that said that, right? Was he really the most evil? I don't know. Has he been given bad shtick over the years, Ben? I don't know, dude. I don't know.
I think there was a TV series called The Most Evil People in the World, and one of them, they didn't have Crowley on there, but one of the people they had on there was Rasputin. And now Rasputin, again, is a similar figure to Crowley, very, very alike in many ways. It's extraordinary. They may have met each other. I wonder if they ever did meet, because they were sort of active at the same time. Rasputin again into magic and spirituality, sexual. I've got a bit of echo there. Sexual excess again, hedonism, use of drugs, drink, things like that. But he never actually did anything very bad. In fact, Rasputin was a healer, and one of the things that made him so famous and he moved in high society quite a bit was that the Tsar and Tsarina, the king and queen of Russia, had a sick child, Prince Alexei. He had haemophilia, and Rasputin used to come around and heal him. So I was watching this TV program thinking, well, what's this guy really done to develop such an evil reputation? And it seems to be simply a kind of aura that he gives off. And you see the same about Crowley. Crowley never really did anything particularly immoral, but he just had this sort of sense about him, this feeling. And people used to cast this kind of shadow on people, and I think that's where the evilness of him comes about. And as for spending a week at Boleskine House, if they do it up as a hotel, I would not spend a week there, no, but one night I would take the risk. I wouldn't be able to resist it. I'm just too curious.
Well, we've got Alien Girl in the chat room. She really is adding in some really brilliant comments here. I think Alien Girl is not making a case for Crowley, but coming at it from the other side, and it's great to see that, because this is how we learn. This is how we see all sides of the story. And she says the strength of your magic is the strength of your will. You intend. And a lot of Crowley's stuff was about intention, because even when he was telling his followers to focus their spiritual intent on Boleskine House, because he really thought this place was of such importance. And then we come down further as well, and Alien Girl was saying something about geniuses walk a tightrope. They can slip over into insanity. And then we had somebody else. It was Mark Fuller. Perhaps Crowley was influenced by, or was influenced by, Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil philosophy. So some really good stuff going on in the comments over there. But yeah, Crowley, he's somebody that will divide a room, I would imagine, decades, maybe centuries into the future, dude.
Oh yeah, I think people are still talking about him now. They're still fascinated by him, and they will be for many, many years to come. He's the kind of guy I don't think will ever be forgotten. He's left an indelible mark on the world.
I will never forget him, that's for sure. Yeah, I didn't have to meet him, and I'll never forget him.
I'd love to meet him. It'd be a great shame we never will, but we might do it if we were in the spirit world. But before then, he'd be absolutely fascinating individual, and it's not just Boleskine House. I think he has affected the whole world in one way or another. So. Yeah, I mean, those are good comments there.
And Valley said Crowley had an extensive occult library, and I wonder if that's what the gentleman we were looking at earlier on. I wonder if they're going to try and restore, the occult library, because that's basically his job. He's helping the foundation put together this extensive, library of works, and I would imagine Crowley's there, yeah, but it would make sense for it to be almost like an occult library.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I noticed that actually when you read the names of the people out and what their specialities were. Now, if he wanted to, I suppose you'd have to get the books off Jimmy Page. Now, Page actually owns most of Crowley's collection of books, including the ones he wrote and the ones he had. Crowley was a great reader as well. He had a huge number of books, and a writer. He wrote several books. Maybe you can buy them off Page, or Page will sort of lend them or donate them. But it's not a bad idea having that house as some kind of Aleister Crowley museum. Turning it into that is actually quite a good idea. I know that Rasputin's old house in Siberia, where he lived, that's now Rasputin Museum.
It's a wonder
in St. Petersburg.
It's a wonder Prince Charles hasn't bought that to go along with Vlad the Impaler's castle. He's
a direct descendant of Vlad the Impaler.
Well, you'll like this next bit as well, Whistles, because I was going to ask Ben about maybe not hashtag storm Boleskine, right? Not without a couple of exorcists in tow. But what about storming Area 51? What's happening, Ben? You were saying you were going to give us the latest update on the pink mist in the desert, as I call it.
No, amazing. This is an awful situation, I think. I mean, it was a bit of a laugh when it started off. But I do hope that people don't actually take this seriously, because they're quite likely to get themselves killed if they do it. The camo dudes, these security guards, are authorised to use deadly force, as the signboards say at the front of the base. and they will open fire if they feel that the base is being invaded. They're allowed to. Also, running across the desert with your arms behind your back for 14 miles, you're quite likely to die anyway because of heat exhaustion and thirst. So that's another reason why it's happening. But believe it or not, there has actually been an official statement from the, amazingly, from the government. The government is now saying that certainly the Nevada. Oh, I've got the. Sorry, I'm just getting up the notes here. Sorry about this. I should have done this earlier. But I know that the government made only its third official pronouncement on Area 51. Basically, a spokesman for the U.S. Air Force said that the base, they just advised people not to do this. They said the base is very well defended, and indeed it is. And anyone who basically is taking their life in their hands if they try to do these kinds of things. Anyway, what's happened is now that the commissioners in Nevada's Lincoln County, which is where Area 51, have declared a emergency declaration. Which is pretty interesting because it basically means that they themselves, the actual civil authorities in the area, are now going to take action against it. The police may well put a stop to this before however many people actually turn up to do this storming business actually even get a chance to go there. So it's a really crazy thing. I mean, it's funny, you know. I wanted it to be a joke, but of course there are some people who will take it seriously.
That's the thing, you know, I mean, when you read some of the posts and things out there from some people, they're taking it really seriously. That's what worries me about this.
There are some people who are unstable enough to take this seriously. I mean, I'm not... The idea of storming Area 51, I mean, in principle, invading and taking over Area 51, well, if you consider the situation with the fact that place is, in a sense, an extra governmental institution. I mean, if the president can't even go there, is it even part of the United States at all? Or is it an enclave of some kind of super government? And I remember the guy Richard Dolan spoke to, the old man who talked about how President Eisenhower was going to send in the army and they were going to invade Area 51 and take it over. I mean, I'm not against that kind of thing in principle, but if you're going to do something like that, you have to do it properly. You have to have a proper plan. You have to have an equal amount of firepower, and you don't put it on Facebook when you're going to do it. You have to catch the people and catch them.
Yeah, that wasn't very good strategical planning at all. Note to the organisers: any invasion is best kept under wraps, really, until you're about ready to go. But all joking aside, I mean, I hope it's just a bunch of people like us get together. They go out there. They use this as an excuse to get together in the desert and have a laugh, you know, have some kind of party. I see people talking about having like a rock concert, stuff like that. You know, people are going to hijack this for money-making purposes, right? There'll be alien hot dogs.
I mean, you've got the T-shirts and things, haven't you?
Absolutely. I went to Storm Area 51 and all I got was this stupid T-shirt. But Whistles, what have you been making of the whole Storm Area 51, man?
Well, I think it'd be stupid in the first case, Kev. It's not the kind of thing you want to do because you're going to die.
Exactly.
If you step over that line, Kev, you're going to die. It's simple as that. So the best thing to do is, as you said, get everybody together. But don't just hold these great big parties in one place. Have them all around Area 51 as much as you can and give them as much work as they can possibly do that night. And give them something to do for a change, because these guys just sit up on a hill and watch people. And if they go over the line, Kev, as you know, you're not coming back.
I think me, you and Ben should go and buy some drones and we'll sit on like a hilltop just across from them and we'll put lots of LED lights on our drones. And man, oh man, wait till you see all those people freaking out when we put on that light show for them. I'm telling you.
There's so many ways we could have fun with this, you know. I mean, so long as it is just a bit of fun and no one takes it seriously. I mean, I personally would go up there to the Little Alien and have a couple of pints, you know, and a burger.
Yeah, I'd love to go to the actual location, Ben, just to say I've been there, but not at a time when these troops are going to be locked and loaded with 50 cals and everything else ready to go, man. Like I say, pale pink mist in the desert. That's what I fear.
Absolutely, there's no way that anyone should attempt to invade Area 51 like this.
Any military facility, not a good idea. Doesn't go down well.
They released millions of balloons over Area 51.
There we go.
I
Storm
mean,
the Vatican.
Get all the equipment going nuts.
There's all kinds of things you could do. I mean, if, as I said, if there's a legitimate cause to occupy the base, for maybe legitimate forces to occupy the base, which essentially is, as I said, an enclave for some kind of super government. You could say that's unconstitutional within the United States. I mean, who knows what if that happens? I mean, it's not just Area 51, as so many people point out. You mentioned other military bases. If there's any alien bodies and crash flying saucers and things, it's probably not just at Area 51. You probably get them in various different places in many
I've
locations.
always been kind of led to believe, Clyde Lewis, other people out there, yeah, Area 51, fascinating, but when it comes to like crash retrievals, stuff like that, the rumour is that the stuff goes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, I don't know how true that is or not, but...
Well, we know.
Yeah, well, when you do
we
go...
know that the Roswell wreckage was taken there, the last news story before the cover story.
And Ben, anything that is at Area 51, okay, I would imagine, right, on the off chance, and that 0.001% chance somebody gets in there, if there was anything that was that secret, I think they might have moved it or hidden it by now.
They certainly have spread it around. I'm sure they've spread it to other... I'm sure they're not putting it all in one place. I mean, you mentioned Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That was the technical data section in 1947, which is where the Roswell wreckage was taken. And the news story said so just before it all went quiet and when the weather balloon nonsense was put out. So that area is still there. I mean, there's an author called Dr. Irena Scott, who's written several very interesting books about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and she's a very interesting lady actually, because she actually worked there. She's a scientist, and she worked there. But there's lots of other places that have been named as possible locations for secret UFO alien-based projects, and indeed there are many places in various kinds of locations in not just in the United States but other countries.
Ben, I was going to ask you, what's like what's the UK equivalent? What's our Area 51?
Well, there's a place called the Boleskine Down in Wiltshire, which is likely to be the kind of place where this would be done, and Porton Down as well, which is nearby. These are like Area 51, and they're the kind of places.
Whole area, you've got the army headquarters as well. I mean, in Salisbury, the actual army HQ, where all like your kind of your generals and things like that would be. So that whole area is concentrated with really, really kind of high level secret facilities that we know about.
Yeah. And there's also, this is where secret scientific projects tend to be located. For example, we know that the biological warfare program that Britain had, or I say had, it probably still does in secret, is based at Porton Down. Indeed, there is still a laboratory there where biochemists and other people do work on nuclear, biological and chemical defense projects.
And Novichok.
Highly classified.
And Novichok.
Yeah, remember we talked about that on a previous show. Do you remember?
Yeah.
The Skripal poisoning? Just down the road in Salisbury that happened, didn't it?
Just a coincidence, Ben. Nothing to see here. Right? We're going to talk more about aliens and trolling on the other side of the break. But before we get there, Ben, let the listeners know where they can check out your books, where they can hear you talking, any speaking engagements you've got coming up. Because, dude, you're on the road like 365 days a year.
It feels like it. I am actually speaking at the Phoenix Probe International Conference, which is at the end of next month. I think it's the 28th and 29th. Yeah, it's the 28th and 29th. I'm on Sunday the 29th. That's at Lytham, St Anne's, Lancashire, not far from Blackpool. I'm also going to be at the UFO Truth Magazine conference. I'm not speaking, but I'm going to be there. I'll have a stall for my books, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, and its two sequels, which is all about basically what we've just been talking about for the last 20 minutes. Area 51, UFOs, crash retrievals, things like that. It's a fictional account of what would happen, possibly would happen, if we had the truth instead of lies.
Oh, I'm liking it. Of course, we've got Johnny Whistles here as well. Man, oh man, it's all happening today, right here on the Kev Baker Show. And don't forget, on tfrlive.com, right after this show finishes, we have got Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew, no less. Quantum Connections on the way. And there he is, Whistler. So we've got about a minute before we go to the break. Whistles, what you been up to, man? You been through in Glasgow lately or what? You enjoying this lovely heat wave we were having?
Oh, I'm amazed, Kev, at the weather that we're having.
It's great, isn't it?
yeah, I'm coming into Glasgow tomorrow, but yep, it's just the last few days, Kev, doing the garden, getting everything all ready for next year, possibly. You know what I mean, to make it a wee bit better, because there's the plants I've got just now. They're growing, but
Well, we'll be back.
they'll get there.
We'll be back in 3 short minutes. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. And just like that, look at that. We're still here on YouTube. See,
Yay.
so
It's nice you got these dual
yeah,
platforms. Jeff.
simulcasting, man. I've got it all sussed. It's like I can multitask. You know, I'm a new age man.
Yeah.
Don't let this toxic beard fool you, folks.
I'll be back in a couple of seconds.
No
guys,
probs,
all right?
man. No probs. So, Whistles, we're still live on YouTube just now. Good to see you, man. Well, good to hear you. And obviously,
Yeah,
I can't
okay.
get you fitted into the camera right now, or it would people would see me on the fly, sweating and freaking out and stressing out, and that's never a good sign. Never a good sight, dude.
No, Kev. No, that's okay, because this was last minute thing, so.
You see, you heard Ben on, and you thought, I just have to have a bit of Ben. Can't beat a bit of Ben, man.
He's fantastic. He's a great guest, Kev, and that's why he's been on 50 times. Do you know what I mean?
And I look forward to at least 150 more, because it's good to have somebody like Ben come on once a month. I mean, doing the show, I concentrate on the guests, I concentrate on the show, the topic of the day. And it's good to have somebody like Ben who's keeping his eye on all these news stories that from time to time we'll touch upon anyway. So it's really good. And I want to give a big shout out to Nancy, obviously. And if anyone wants to support the stream, you can have several ways to do that. There's Super Chat. There's also memberships where you get your own emojis. You can get a subscription over at TFR Live. Or my personal favourite is PayPal, because then we cut out the Google middleman. And talking of PayPal, I want to give a big shout out to Kathy Schwabel. And I think we see her name there on the list of people. And also Dr. Brian Keating, 2 of the latest people to join the Patreon page as well. And talking to Dr. Brian Keating, he's the astrophysicist that came that close to winning the Nobel Prize. He's going to be back on the show on the 23rd of September. It's the anniversary of the book coming out, and he wants to spend that with yours truly. So I can't ask for any more than that. Johnny Whistles, astrophysicists, you know, all these scientific boffins, man. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, I know, Kev. It's amazing. I mean, some of the guests that you've had lately, I mean, they have been amazing. Do you know what I mean? Some of the stories.
Not to drop names, like what you mean, like David Icke, things like that, you know?
Exactly. Do you know what I mean, Kev? So, yeah, I mean, the show's just grown and grown now, Kev. So,
Well, we're going to try and
again, Kev, the same as you, a massive, massive shout out to Nancy.
Yep, all the people out there. And, yeah, we're going to have Ben. He's back in a minute. We're going to join up with the network again. So I'm just checking the clock now, make sure we're all good to go. And Ben, when we come back, we'll get into my recent show with Gary.
Yeah, we need to put the record straight, because so much nonsense has been talked about in the UK. It's really, and myself, of course.
Yes, you know me, I tend to laugh it off, but man, oh man, it's been vicious this time. It truly has.
Really, yeah, they're really on the warpath at the moment.
And I don't know why, because usually what I find is trolls, they escalate once you bite. They realise they've got you in there, so they'll escalate. But now it doesn't seem like, I don't know.
I think you've got to just address the factual points they make, and then just, you know, basically engage, address the points, then back off. I don't dwell on it. I just discredit their factual errors. And
here we go. Now stand by. I just need to time this correctly, and then we will be back on the network. So best of behaviour, everyone. Best of behaviour. Here we go. We're going back live with all the thousands around the world. Are you ready? Yes, indeed. It's like waiting for, I don't know, Apollo to blast off. Musk to blast off. 5, 4, 3. Oh, come on, let's go live. Let's do it. I can't bring it in too early, folks, because what happens then is we get hit with copyright. Here we go. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker, on this, the very special 50th show that we've done with Ben Emlyn-Jones. 50, not out. I couldn't believe it today when he told me we've done 50 shows together. And when Ben was away getting a cup of coffee during the break or a little drink there, I was saying to Johnny Whistles, my good friend, I was saying, we've done 50, but I'm looking towards the next 150, 200, 250. As many as we can put out there, Ben, because I enjoy working with you. And it seems that we're definitely on the same frequency, man. We cover a lot of the same stories. And one in particular, I have to thank you for putting me in contact with Larry Warren. Now, Larry Warren is somebody very central to the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident that happened in late 1980 at RAF Bentwaters down in England. Now, I had Gary Heseltine on the show, and he's an ex-cop from the UK, the man behind the UFO Truth magazine, and somebody who's working as very closely with the production team putting together the documentary film called Capel Green. Now, this is going to be an extensive piece of work that covers everything to do with Rendlesham. And it's almost like we're lucky here, Ben, because we're getting to report on what could arguably be the UK's very own Roswell, okay? And that should be really exciting times for people like me, you, Johnny, and everyone else involved. Because unlike Roswell, where because of the years that have passed now, over time we've started to lose more and more of the key people, the witnesses who were there at the incident in the first place. Yet Rendlesham, it's very recent in comparison, 1980. Most of the people, if not all of the people who were there that day, they're still here. We can still talk to them. But something's gone wrong. Very, very wrong. Because if anyone had noticed after the show I had done with Gary Heseltine, and I love working with Gary, I really do, find him to be one of the most genuine, sincere, and always backs up anything that he has to claim as well. But myself and Gary's used to it, but I came in for some serious attacks. Serious, Ben. Both publicly, on social media posts for the public to see, but not only that, but into my inbox as well. And I'm not special. I'm not making this about me. Ben's had to put up with this. Everyone who's associated with covering the Larry Warren side of the story has had to put up with this. And Ben, what the hell's going on? Because instead of it dying off, it seems to be intensifying.
It sort of comes in waves. There's a kind of like a sine wave. It goes up and goes down, and at the moment it's on the ascendant path of that particular wave. And it was, of course, Larry Warren is one of the key figures in the entire event because, as you just said, it's a more recent event than Roswell. And not only that, there was only the investigation into it began as soon as the event happened, which is quite rare in ufology. In the case of the Roswell incident, 31 years passed before anyone really looked into it. And Larry Warren was the principal witness at the time, and he still is. He came forward, he addressed the media, he spoke to ufologists, to Brenda Butler, Dot Street, Jenny Randalls and others. And he shared his story, and he wrote a book. He co-wrote a book with Peter Rowan, left at Eastgate. And now there's this amazing new documentary coming out, Capel Green. Now, there's always been controversy within the Rendlesham Forest story. The witnesses have disagreed on what actually happened that day. It's got much worse and worse over the years, actually, and it really has reached a peak of vitriol and confusion and deception that I've never seen before in this particular event. But unfortunately, the fact is the deception and confusion is caused simply by somebody who has a personal grudge against Larry Warren. This is a former friend of his who had a big falling out with him. And when this happened, she started posting material about him online, which was palpably false. And when I said so, when I said this happened, I myself was attacked as well and called names and accused of terrible things, as were you. This has sort of come and gone. And the most recent event is you had Gary Heseltine on your show, as you said, talking about this event. And, of course, you were then sucked into it again. Now, the people, it's just one person, like I said, really, who's at the centre of this, a former friend of Larry's. But there's she's got a couple of hangers-on, people who believe her amazingly, and but really believe she's seriously investigating Larry, and she's not just bearing a grudge. But for instance, they accused when Gary was on your show, they accused him of, again, some very cruel and nasty things. They said, for example, that he as a policy, he was refusing to allow female speakers onto the podium at the UFO Truth Magazine conference. This is utterly false. This is completely and utterly false. He never said that, yet this is how he is being reported in the publications of these trolls. When this happened, I decided to do something about it, and I didn't like the way you were attacked either, Kev. I was upset, but you getting attacked as well. And now, I mean, I know they always say, don't feed the trolls, don't feed the trolls. And it's true, you shouldn't feed the trolls, which is why I simply engage, discredit, and withdraw. That's my policy. I don't feed them. I don't get into arguments with them. I have them all blocked on social media. But if they say something, if they make factual claims, I look at those claims, I describe them, and I debunk them, and then I back off. That's my policy. In, discredit, out. So I believe that this was a situation in which the factual errors, the lies and the slander that was thrown, especially at Gary Heseltine, but also yourself and me, needed to have that treatment. It needed to be engaged, discredited, and then thrown aside.
And I think it is important for the audience to realise that this is born out of a personal kind of grievance. It really is, because the person who's really active in all of this was a one-time super fan of Larry, and then something happened, and now it seems that this person's directing, or at least encouraging, some of the other activity that's going on. But then there's another level to this as well, because the actual story of Rendlesham, and you're getting some big characters involved here, like Nick Pope, everyone will recognise his name. And I can't understand, this is the bit that gets me, because it's almost as if people out there, I don't know who, but somebody doesn't want this side of the story out there. I mean, if it was just rubbish, you know, I mean, they could just say, listen, this guy's talking rubbish and make your own mind up on it. But because it gets so personal, because they're looking for other angles, like the discrimination card with Gary at the conference coming up, it's any way, shape or form to not only attack the story that has been put forward by Larry, but anyone associated with them in any way, shape or form, it's just attack them, attack their character. Yeah. It's vicious. It's weird, dude.
It's extremely odd. I mean, as you just said, and as we both said, the person at the centre of this scandal is a former friend of Larry's, who is motivated completely and utterly by a personal grudge and nothing more. It is a purely personal vendetta. That's all it is. And you'd think that it would just be left like that. You know, you'd have a few people who, obviously, she has these orbiters who seem to hang on her every word. It's like a little cult that she has. And then that would be the end of it. But what's happened is, I suddenly see that Nick Pope, of all people, starts writing about this, and he starts talking about it. And he appears to be involved now, which is strange, because you think this sort of thing would be beneath him. I mean, he is the Mr. UFO media person in Britain, and now he's in America too. So what's he doing, getting involved in this rather childish and petty little squabble? I thought to myself, why is he doing this? Because he's really been encouraging Larry's former friend. He's been geeing her on. He's been grooming her almost, it feels like, to play the role she's playing. And I mean, she doesn't need much encouragement, but he's been giving her as much encouragement as he can. So I thought, why? Now, the answer to that, I think, is, and I'm quite open about my feelings for Nick Pope and about how I don't trust him. The effect of this scandal, this troll crisis, on the Rendlesham Forest incident, the knock-on effect is that, in a sense, research on the proper ufological research has kind of ground to a halt now. Because of this, it is essentially being derailed because the people involved in the Rendlesham Forest incident, essentially we've had to down tools to address this particular problem with Larry, this personal issue with Larry and his former friend. And this is not to blame Larry. I mean, Larry wants nothing more than to be shot at this. Yep. He's the centre of this. He's the man at the centre who's been smeared and slandered more than anything else. And he's a friend of mine, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. But it's really... It's hampering what we should be doing. Do you see what I mean? What this person, this former friend of Larry, has done is thrown a massive spanner in the works. And when Nick Pope is assisting her, obviously he has an ulterior motive here. He's encouraging her.
It's like
But
I was
yeah.
saying to you before the show as well. I mean, it's multi-layered because we know this personal association connection between Larry and this character. We know some of the characters ourselves personally. Like I've met one of them physically in the real world as well. And for me, the kind of lower level trolling that's going on, it's nothing to do with intelligence or psyops, anything like that.
No.
However, there's this other tier that's come in. You mentioned Pope. We don't know what he's up to, but it's almost as if now these people have provided an opportunity for whoever it is that wants to close this story down, and they're being used, and this is quite a convenient crisis for whoever's trying to muddy the water.
Yeah, I'm absolutely certain that this former friend of Larry is not working for any, as I say, working for any agency, any three-letter organisation. She's motivated by purely personal personal vendetta, like I said. But she may well have accidentally struck exactly the note that people want to amplify with a far more sinister agenda at work. That's what I'm thinking. She, in a sense, has quite by chance become their best gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so that's what I think is good. This is why I think Pope is involved, and I think you're going to see a lot more of this. Because Pope has been saying things about us. Not you. I don't think you care, but he has about me and about Gary and Larry, of course. Very similar to what this former friend has been saying, and including accusations of misogyny and things like that, which is a terribly scandalous thing to say to a man who has daughters and a wife. It's an awful thing to say. I mean, it's defamatory. And Nick Pope, unfortunately, has not been above repeating those things.
No, it's weird. And Johnny, I mean, this is like our favourite UFO case, right? And it's turned into a kind of crap show. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, no, Kev. The thing is about the trolling of Larry Warren. It's just how big it actually got. I mean, it started off with maybe just that woman and a couple of people following her, but everybody out there seems to be after Larry Warren. I've read some ridiculous stories, honestly, absolutely shocking, about Larry Warren and Gary Heseltine out there. And yet, when you see some of the people that are actually saying these things, I mean, it's shocking, kid, but I don't think I have ever... In fact, there's only one person in the world just now getting more trolling than Larry Warren, and that's probably Donald Trump, Kev. I'm being honest.
He deserves it, though, so that's all right. I'm only joking. You know me, Whistles. All politicians deserve it. But no, it's a weird one. It truly is weird.
Crazy.
And I think it's only going to get worse, Ben, the closer we get to the release of Capel Green.
Yeah, I think they are, in a sense, very worried about the emergence of Capel Green. I mean, it's really quite amazing how many reviews have been published for this film. The trolls and their acolytes have been publishing all kinds of pronouncements on this film, and it hasn't even been finished yet. So that's a unique occurrence in the history of cinema there. And so it's going to get worse. There's going to be more of this. Actually, I've found I'm getting more hate mail myself, Kev. I really have been, and I think you're going to get a lot more attempts, or it's almost like they're looking for things we say and do, and they're blowing them out of all proportion in order to discredit us. We're going to have more and more of this. I mean, I've actually, if any listeners or viewers want to know more, if you go to Hapanmo Voice, just a few days ago, I wrote 2 articles all about this, about what had been said by this person, this character, former friend of Larry's, and also his co-author, sadly, Peter Robbins, has unfortunately planted his flag with these trolls, which is one of the most dismaying aspects of this entire nasty little incident. I've also addressed things that he has said too.
You had Peter Robbins and Larry possibly working together on one of the best pieces of work to do with Rendlesham, right? Left at Eastgate.
Exactly, yeah.
And now this. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It really, really doesn't. And here we are with yet another one of these cases where we've got unidentified craft, strange happenings around somewhere where nukes were being housed when they shouldn't have been. I mean, this is a really important case. And instead of dealing with that and doing the real investigation, like you said, Ben. Here we are. We're having to deal with this nonsense, you know.
Yeah, it's tragic. It's really, really sad that this has happened, and I do hope it does. We do find some resolution to this. I believe the film Capel Green will actually, hopefully, give us a case closed situation finally. I mean, I don't. There's some people who will never shut up about it. They'll never let it go. They'll just keep ranting on about it forever and ever. But I think in the eyes of most people already, they're getting fed up with this negativity. It's been a sordid little affair now. It's been going on since 2016. In fact, it really kicked off during the conference where I first met you, Kev, Johnny, in Glasgow. That's really where it all kicked off. It's really literally been going non-stop since then, and I hope we get some kind of closure, because it's boring, and I think I'm not the only one who's really fed up and wants to see the back of this. The only people who are enjoying this are the people who are instigating it. I want it to go away so we can get on with what we're supposed to be doing as ufologists. That's like my end goal. So,
and it's
bring on the day.
Yeah, it's the truth that we're trying to get to, and all the claims that I've seen being made against Larry, as best or as good a researcher as I am, not very. None of them pan out.
They're not just an exaggeration. They're not just an embellishment. They are a fabrication from start to finish. I've been through every single point. I've written a whole series of articles. I've done videos. I've done a couple of radio shows. I've interviewed Larry several times. It's made up. It is literally a charade, Kev, from start to finish. And it literally only emerged after this personal bust-up that she had with him. It's sad, Kev. It's sad that even anyone takes this seriously.
No, you're right. So let's talk about disclosure in general, because this is something that we do cover when you come onto the show. We've got Tom DeLong, we've got the To the Stars Academy, we've got my best friend Elizondo. What's your latest on what's going on there, or what's not going on there, Ben?
Well, unbelievable. There's all kinds of things happening at the moment. It's really exciting. Again, it's hard to know exactly where we're going, because there's still a lot of secrecy and shadiness in the business. And we did an entire program on this about the To the Stars Academy and what they've been talking about. I remember that was really interesting. We dedicated the whole program to it. But the latest, unbelieve it or not, is that the sort of knobbly cut open head of the alien autopsy has resurfaced. And right. I never thought that would happen, Kev. I really thought we'd never see the day. I thought that was dead and buried.
So,
but it's come back.
Is that To the Stars Academy, or is it just no?
This is separate,
okay.
But it's connected. It's connected through Eric Davis and these people who've been involved, and because he's connected to Hal Puthoff, who's in the TTSA. But there's an email that was written in 2001. Which is an email between several people involved who are now involved in TTSA, and a guy called Kit Green, who's a doctor who worked for the CIA. And you remember the Santilli film, this film that emerged in 1995, which apparently showed an alien body being cut up by pathologists. And this was an international sensation. It was on TV. It was everywhere. So people started investigating it, including Philip Mantle, who wrote a book about it. And pretty soon it was revealed to have been made by a group of basically some filmmakers and some hoaxers. There was a guy called Ray Santilli, a guy called Spiros Malaris, several others, who'd essentially concocted a fake film. Now, there's always been a few people, just a handful, who've always doubted that was actually the case, and that really the film was real, and that the hit being hoaxed was actually some kind of cover-up. I've never been one of those people. I was 100% sure that it was fake.
Yeah, same here.
And then, there's been people who disagree. But I mean, one of them actually is a good friend of mine, Colin Wolford. He's one of I think he's the loudest voice of the other side in this particular event.
Well, your guest that you had on, Dave, he says he's involved in the alien autopsy.
Dave Altman.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, it's sort of got back into ufology now and about everything the ufologists are doing. And because I've had to look at it again now because of this particular event. I'm not saying I now believe it's real, and then I agree with Colin, but I am sort of like reassessing the whole thing at the moment because there's obviously more to this story. And I mean, it's not really what I would want, because I always think when you say case closed, that should be the end of it. But it's now the whole issue, the whole can of worms has now been reopened, and it has to be re-examined. And there are some voices of reason. There's people like Richard Dolan who have been investigating this an awful lot. Linda Moulton Howe has done her own investigation into this. Hopefully we will have definitive answers soon. But it's just that Kit Green has said, well, first he said that the alien autopsy film was real. He knew because he saw it earlier in 1987. Then he said, no, he saw something similar that looked like that. And then he said, no, I saw some stills. I had like some photographs of stills, and some of these stills were in the alien autopsy film. To be honest, Kev, I don't know what to think right now. It's something that I hopefully we'll know more about in the future. But right now, I'm just looking at it and seeing if anything happens. I mean, as far as my default position is what I've said before, that it was fate. I mean, Philip Mantle's book was very, very convincing, as was, I spoke to Spiros Malaris. I actually interviewed him, and he was very persuasive. I've got no reason to doubt what he said and what was in that book either by Mantle. But what Kit Green has said can't be ignored. It has to be addressed.
Well,
so we'll have to wait and see.
Well, it sure is interesting. Whistles, what do you make of it, man? For me, it's always been kind of questionable, I must admit. What do you think, Johnny?
Nah, I've never believed it, Kev.
Yeah.
I've never really seen anything, even up to this day, do you know what I mean, that makes me believe it. And for that to come about again, to get interesting again, Kev, just makes me think that somebody's making money off it out there somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It just seems to, because it's incredible that people are so believable that this thing is real. You know what I mean? That they can say for sure that this is real, because I can't see anything that determines it's real, Kev.
That's the one thing. You know, it's not definitive. We can't say it's real. We can't say it's not. And, you know, if something new was to come out nowadays anyway, with deep fakes and AI and everything else, Ben, my default position would be, I'm not trusting it. And it could be the most bona fide, genuine alien autopsy film in the world. But because of all the shenanigans and the trickery that we know they can do, and we know that they like to put disinfo out there, I'd be that skeptical. I'd probably miss it, man.
Well, sadly, yeah, we live in an age not only where disinformation is very common, but the ability to create realistic hoaxes is much greater now than it's ever been before. Indeed, as it was in 1995, you could say that it wasn't as bad as it is today. It's only in recent years, really, we have had this problem, but we have a massive signal-to-noise ratio issue to deal with now because of Photoshop and because of things like that. I mean, the alien autopsy film, it's only one of many similar videos going around the internet at the moment. Some of them could well be real. In fact, there are a couple I do think are real. But in this, honestly, if it came out today, it would be a completely different matter to when it came out in 1995. I mean, I personally was in no doubt at all that it was fake. I mean, having read the book which Philip Mantle wrote, looking at all the research that was done, and the people, even the people who were behind it, I was convinced it was completely and utterly fake. And it may, and you know, I still am in a way, but you know, now we're living in now. Of course, it is a film that came out in 1995 when it wasn't possible to Photoshop everything. There wasn't all these deep hoax. Was it deep hoax you're called?
Deep fake.
Deep fake.
The only thing I would add to that is, you know, if the thing they say about technology is true and it holds fast for everything, then photo editing and the ability to maybe make fakes way ahead of their time back then might have been something that intelligence agencies had their hands on. DARPA.
Could, yeah.
But
well, you know,
again, you know, deep fake, something very, very new in our kind of nomenclature, in our kind of world. But how long have they been maybe playing about with that kind of thing on the back end, you know?
I mean, even what's available in the public. I mean, remember the Nimitz Encounter video, the Nimitz Encounter documentary, which we talked about a couple of shows ago.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing, and I watched it and I thought, wow, that's pretty good camera work they got. They must have had the cooperation of the US Navy to launch aircraft, especially to film this and things like that. But I suddenly realized, I looked closer and I realized, yes, it's CGI. it's a CGI. It's all CGI videos, but it's incredibly good.
Now we're just
It's
about on the
incredibly
break.
realistic.
We're on the break here, and we've got Majestic Magnet in the chat room. Saw aliens back in 2014. Says they're very scary, and I am sure I would be pretty petrified if I came across one as well. However, I would imagine, just like planet Earth, you get good and you get bad. It's a big universe out there. So there's probably good ones, there's probably bad ones, there's probably ones worse than us, there'll be ones better than us. We'll be back on the other side, hopefully with no aliens. We'll be right back. There we go, one segment to go, you brilliant people. And we've still got
Yeah.
everyone over at YouTube is still here with us. I do like the
thanks.
simulcast, I must admit. A big shout out to Stev, Nothing As It Seems, Waldo, Lee Veltman in the chat room. Big shout out to Lee. We've got Majestic Magnet, the alien witness. Dave, your friend. Tessa. Daniel Brennan. Mr. Gianluca Vialli. Awesome footballer, dude. Love the goals he scored for Chelsea. We have also got the Lazy Kraken Gaming Channel. Alan Hazard. Bearded Traveller. Yes, I'm looking a bit bearded these days myself, I must admit. So when we come back from the break, what I'm going to be asking Ben about is the Amazon and what's going on in the Amazon, because there's a lot. Listen, I'll put it out here to you people on YouTube first. There's a lot of fake photographs going around claiming to be of what's happening in the Amazon right now. Now, because I've said that, I am in no way trying to tell you that the Amazon fires are fake. There's definitely something going on in the Amazon, folks. But what I am saying is be very careful. And a really invaluable tool that I urge everyone to start using is Google reverse image search. And what you do there is you drop an image in, and what it will do is it'll look at it, and it'll tell you how many times that's been on the internet, when it was first on the internet. Point being, when it's hurricanes, whether it's earthquakes, whether it's something like this fire in the Amazon, there seems to be this need to be first, Ben, and people regurgitate and they recycle old information, and it can be easy to kind of get caught up in that, and you'll share it, and before you know it, something from 10 years ago goes viral, and this causes a problem. But we'll talk about this when we come back on the other side. There's people out there saying that it's entirely fake. There's nothing going on.
Yeah. I've seen it a lot. I mean, we were talking actually off air a little earlier about a certain person who goes by the name of Researcher, but is continuously posting fake material on her website. Well, there's lots of ads on there, of course, so it's a lot very clickbaity.
Yep.
And she was one of the people actually making out that there were no fires in the Amazon. But in fact, there are. I mean, there are fires there. They're real fires. I mean, there's just so much material there. Well, we'll talk about it, of course, when we come back on TFR, but...
it's horrible. I mean...
Yeah, there's a reason for being suspicious about how these fires started.
Yes,
definitely.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Big time. And the Amazon, of course, I mean, that's so critical to...
It produces 20% of the oxygen in our atmosphere. If you took away the Amazon, it would change the oxygen, get the gas balances of our atmosphere, of air. And which could be fatal to life on Earth.
Well, John Nolan in the chat room. Hi, Kev. If an alien said, "Come with me," would you go with him? If it was a him, probably not. If it was a big Nordic, blonde hair, blue eyes, I reckon I might be there. If it looked like AOC, you know, with the big bulgy eyes, I'd definitely be there. It all depends what it looks like, man. You know.
If it was the green girl from Star Trek, definitely.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So we're just getting ready to come back to the home of the Kev Baker Show, Truth Frequency Radio. We'll be joining the network in just a moment. And don't forget, folks, head on over to TFR Live after this finishes, because Lockie and Dr. Brooks Agnew, no less, they are going to be hosting Quantum Connections. The radio just keeps on rolling on and on. And I'm watching the studio time here. I'm multitasking. You see, this is the way it's done now, Whistles. Change days, eh?
Yeah, no, I have, Kev.
Telling you.
Sorry, Kev, talking about the aliens.
Well,
there,
wait just now, dude. Wait just now. We're going to
Okay.
come back to the network. Here we go.
Come.
There we go. We are back. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kev Baker. We've got Ben Emlyn-Jones here for his 50th visit to the Kev Baker Show. And we've also got Whistles It's a real celebration, a real landmark today. We're talking about aliens during the break, Johnny. You were going to say something before I brought us back there.
Yeah, I mean, people were talking about what aliens look like. Maybe ask the Japanese, their leader's wife, who said that she was abducted, and she was actually taken on a ship, and she said that Venus is absolutely beautiful. It's a beautiful place. Now that's the Japanese, the top man, his wife coming out and saying that she was abducted. That is something, Kev.
Where did you see this, Whistles?
This was on, I was watching the TV the other day, a documentary about it.
You heard of that one, Ben?
I have not, no. I mean, I've heard of several important
That's
people.
one worth checking into.
Yeah, I'd like to know
Definitely.
more, because I have a lot of respect for people who are in the public eye, who come forward and talk about what they experience. Like Yaphet Kotto, the actor, the guy who was in Alien, the black guy, he came forward and he said that he'd been an abductee, and he has been, and he's 77 now, and it's been going on his whole life. And I thought to myself, it takes guts to do that when everyone knows your name and people walk down the street and they see you, and you don't have this anonymity to hide behind that we do. And I think to myself, well done for doing that. And I'd like to know more about her, actually, and about what she said.
Well, I found a story here, and it says, I have been abducted by aliens, says Japan's First Lady, and she also knew Tom Cruise in a previous life. Let's just leave that out of there just now, because that's a good way of them kind of shaping your view of the story before you even get there. So it says, move over, Michelle, watch your backs, Carla and Sarah. There's a new kid on the First Lady block, and she looks like upstaging the lot of you. Now, bear in mind, folks, this dates back to 2009, this story. And it says, Mayuki Hatoyama, the wife of Japan's Prime Minister-elect, Yukio Hatoyama, is a lifestyle guru, a macrobiotics enthusiast, an author of cookery books, a retired actress, a divorcee, and a fearless clothes horse for garments of her own creation, including a skirt made from Hawaiian coffee sacks. But there's much, much more. She has travelled to the planet Venus, and she was once abducted by aliens. The 62-year-old also knew Tom Cruise in a former incarnation when he was Japanese. He's still about the height of a Japanese person, so maybe, and is now looking forward to making a Hollywood movie with him. I believe he'd get it if I said to him, long time no see when we meet, she said in a recent interview. But it is her claim in a book entitled Very Strange Things I've Encountered that she was abducted by aliens while she slept one night 20 years ago that has suddenly drawn attention following last Sunday's poll. Quote, while my body was asleep, I think my soul rode on a triangular-shaped UFO and went to Venus, she explains in the tome that she published last year. It was a very beautiful place, and it was very green. Now, when the new Japanese First Lady related her adventures to her then husband, he told her flatteningly that it was probably just a dream. But she is confident that Yukio, the man now entrusted with the task of hauling Japan out of its deepest recession, would have reacted very differently. My current husband has a different way of thinking. He would surely say, oh, that's great, she wrote. Now, Mrs. Hatoyama's self-confidence in projecting her personality and shattering the traditional expectations of a political wife probably derives from her early years as a dancer in Japan's legendary all-girl Takarazuka theatrical troupe. So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, she's certainly an interesting character, that's for sure. And Venus, if I'm right, didn't the Nazis have a thing about Venus?
It's odd because they did. I mean, there's been a lot of focus on Venus through the years. However, the space probes that have gone there because it has been the Russians managed to land a few space probes there in the 60s and 70s. What they've discovered is that Venus is actually one of the most inhospitable places in the universe. It's extremely hot.
Yep.
It actually rains sulfuric acid, and the pressure at ground level is the same as it is 3,000 feet beneath the sea, which means that it's not it's not green and lush. I mean, this goes back to Val Valiant Thor, and because he apparently came from Venus. But so if she, I'm not saying she's lying, I'm not saying she's made it up, but she cannot possibly have gone to the planet we call Venus, because it's not like that.
Who knows?
Maybe it is if you're an alien.
Well, you'd have to be. What kind of life could exist there? Certainly not human life.
But we're talking about alien technology, Ben.
Well, possibly there's like an underground chamber there where it's different. I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about the case, I'm afraid, Johnny. I can't really say, but I know.
I mean, it was amazing just to hear it to come from, as Kev says, such a high political figure. Do you know what I mean? To come
that is remarkable. Story. Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, what does her? I mean, it's sort of like Simon Parkes, if you remember who was a political figure here in Britain. I know he was a local councillor in Whitby, North Yorkshire, but he spoke out about his own experience, his own alien abduction experiences, and of course, how does that affect the way he's regarded by his constituents and the political party he was a member of, and he's still a member of that party, I believe. I don't know if he still has his seat on the council, but he was tolerated. He was tolerated, and there's been several other occasions where people have made statements like this, and they have not been, and they've been treated better than you might think, which could add to their credibility. There's been a couple of, I mentioned Yaphet Kotto, the actor. I mean, he's not lost roles as a result of this. I mean, he's got nothing to gain by speaking out about this. I mean, if it wasn't true, if he just made it up, I mean, I don't see why someone would make something like this up.
Exactly. It's like President Nixon. He said on his way to a party that he had seen something on the road, a massive bright light, and he stopped. And the next thing he knew, he was almost at the party, driving.
Missing time.
But he was an hour late.
I mean, some people will hold it back to begin with, and then they'll come out with it later in life because they're worried about what the effect it will have. Because, I mean, according to the officials, the medical position on this, as it has one, is this is a mental disorder of some kind. It's sometimes blamed on sleep paralysis. It's not. I mean, that's rubbish. I know because I have sleep paralysis quite regularly, and it's not the same. Dave Hodrian has done a really, really good talk about this in the research.
Big Dave's a good guy, man. I remember having Dave on.
Birmingham UFO Group.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I think I'll need to get him back on again soon, man. Nice guy.
Yeah, love the guy.
We're going to run out of time, and there's something I need to ask you about. The Amazon, Ben.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of talk about whether this is actually happening or not. And my personal take is that there's something very real happening in the Amazon. But that being said, if we're out there looking on Twitter and Facebook, always, especially with something like this, something like tsunamis, earthquakes, learn to use the reverse image search tool, because there seems to be a lot of recycled imagery, video, stuff like that comes out anytime there's a story, some kind of natural disaster. The Amazon, no different. And in fact, there's been that much kind of regurgitated, recycled footage from previous events. It's led to stories actually being written on the rise of the kind of fake memes and fake news that's surrounding something that, like I say, it is very real, Ben. But what's your take on it all?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We need to be, in a sense, you have to question everything these days. And indeed, when we were off the air, we were talking that I came across a news story about the Large Hadron Collider, and I didn't look at it very clearly, but then I showed it to you, and you immediately informed me it was fake, and I looked into it and I saw that it was. This is similar in that sense, because now there's several different, a lot of people are questioning what's happening in the Amazon, but there's lots of different types of beliefs of what's really going on. Now, I've come across people who say that there's fires there, but that's normal because the Amazon rainforest is the biggest tropical rainforest in the world, and it is a natural treasure house. It is one of the biological wonders of the world, and it does catch fire, unfortunately, during the dry season. Every year there's always going to be some fires, as you get with forests normally. What the claim is now that what you have now is much worse fires than you normally get. Now there's someone saying, oh no, it's not worse, it's just a normal fire, and this is just being used by the G7 summit to promote climate change and things like that. Now, from what I've seen, there is a real fire going on there, and it's big fires. I mean, there's a lot of material out there, but I mean, there may be a reason why the fire's happening in the first place. For example, it's not a natural disaster. I think the fires might have been started deliberately, and the reason I think that is because there was a landmark case in the courts of Brazil just a few weeks ago. There was a year-long legal battle. And a 3-judge panel ruled in favor of Amazon Indian tribes and declared that 500,000 acres of this rainforest would be protected from mining, drilling, logging, and oil drilling and things like that. And this is a major precedent, because this could spread elsewhere. That the Amazon, which has been exploited for its resources, trees have been cut down, they've been cleared for farming and things like that. There's cocoa plantations where there used to be forests and things like that. There's been lots and lots of efforts to save it over the years, and the people who live in there, and some of them actually have had little or even no contact at all with the outside world. And it's almost like an alien invasion for them when we suddenly turn up with our bulldozers and things like that. But it's only just after this ruling in the court that these fires started burning. And so, from what I've seen so far, and I may be wrong, and I'm open to revise the position that I'm on, we have somehow this is some kind of environmental vandalism because of what's happened. I think it could be either the agents within the government or within the various oil companies and people like that involved in exploiting this jungle are deciding to carry out a scorched earth policy. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. I hate to see these trees burning, and of course the Amazon is very precious, as we were saying, like in the break. It's essential for maintaining the balance of gases in the Earth's atmosphere, in the air. If you change those balances of gases, it could threaten all life on Earth. We need the Amazon. We need it to live. All of us in the world.
I'm with you, and I wasn't aware of this court case that you speak of, but, certainly it doesn't prove anything, but it wouldn't be beyond some of these corporations, some of these groups to, get payback and try and reclaim that land anyway in another way, shape or form. And the timing as well, very convenient with the G7 on. But I've not heard the
a warning to the other Indians.
Yeah, and I've not heard the G7 making such a big thing about it. So, I think Trump and Putin and Boris, they're too busy being controversial to really take time out to speak about anything of any importance, Ben. So, I don't know.
All they've said actually at the G7 summit is there's going to be international aid now. They've decided to donate some money to help fight the fires. So they've actually sent some aid. I don't know exactly what they're spending the money on, but they're trying to fight the fires using various methods, and they need money.
And
the fires have been burning for ages. There's one guy who said the fires have all been lit around areas where there are people, where there's already people. So they haven't just appeared spontaneously in the middle of the untouched jungle. They've appeared certain places where there have been, there's towns and cities. So this indicates, this adds evidence, it adds weight to the theory that these were started deliberately by people.
And I've seen people saying, you can't get fires in rainforests, things like that. You can go on and check historically.
You can, if it's dry in the dry season, you can.
Yeah, you can.
And they do burn in the dry season.
Yeah, I mean, you can go and check historically. They keep records for them, and again, you could go down the road of saying, well, all the records are made up, but we can only go at face value. And I'm pretty sure we could get a hold of somebody over there. I wish we could, and somebody on the ground that could tell us, yes, there is, no, there isn't. Personally, I think there is, and quite worrying. I hate to see that, especially the Amazon. I mean, it's already been raped and pillaged, man.
Yeah, I wish it was fake. I really do, because I hate the thought of this forest burning. There's the animals. There's unique animal species that are going to be threatened. There's unique human cultures which are going to be threatened. And as I said, this could be the reason they're doing this is possibly as a warning to the other Indians not to try and take out any similar court cases, because they say, well, you do this and we'll burn your forest down. I mean, there's some horrible people in this world. You know, some of them are just so greedy they don't even care. It's
the elite.
As we were talking earlier about Crowley and about Thelema, you do what thou wilt. For some people, it is it is like psychopathic or pseudo psychopathic elements which simply do this because they want the trees and they want the timber and they want the oil and things like that, and they don't care what they'll do to get it. And they don't care about burning down trees and killing animals and killing people as well, and destroying their habitats.
No,
I'd never do that. I mean, I would never do that. But some people obviously do and would. So,
you know, you want to take a look at some of the things we're doing wrong to the planet and what we've done to the Amazon over the years, and other rainforests and other parts of the world. You know, that's a big contributing factor to the way things are today. You know.
There's so much wrong with the world, and it's hard to know where to start. I mean, the environment is one place. I mean, I personally, as we discussed before, I'm not concerned about climate change and carbon emissions. I think that is a hoax, but there are real environmental damage being done to the earth by human activity, and one of those is deforestation. The fact that all the world's forests are threatened now. It's the Amazon's the worst example, but all the world's great forests are now under threat. We have plastic litter in the oceans, which is killing wildlife. Fishing nets and things get abandoned, and whales and dolphins get caught in them. We've got topsoil erosion, water being poisoned, air being poisoned. I just think to myself, is it all this is happening? And it's not like someone's going out there to try and kill the world, trying to destroy the earth. And maybe at one level it is about the destruction of the earth. Maybe the things that Crowley was conjuring up are at work in the world today. I mean, I don't think Crowley was a harmful person, like I said, but Crowley was absolutely fearless. He was scared of nothing, and if he would summon up the deepest, darkest demons of hell just for fun, just for entertainment.
Yeah,
and
12 Dukes of Hell he was trying to welcome into Boleskine, you know.
And it's possible that there is a malevolent spiritual force is at work in the world today. It may be what David Icke says about the reptilians. It may be that. It may be the psychopaths and things. I don't know what it is, but if we wanted to destroy the earth.
I think there's reptilians. I think there's insectoids. I think there's silica life forms. I think there's life forms we haven't even comprehended yet. All of them, you know, just outside of that physical light that we can see, that very small slither on the light spectrum. Absolutely. And I know people will kind of knock Icke for his reptilian stuff and all the rest of it, but I tell you what, if the test of time continues the way it has been for David Icke, give it a couple of years, because I can guarantee you, if it's like anything else Icke's talked about, there's going to be a scientific study that comes out soon, and it'll probably bloody well prove him right. Because over time, it's just like more and more things get checked off his list. Told you that, check. Told you that, check. It's uncanny.
A lot of people in these conspiracy nuts like us were saying a couple of months back, Jeffrey Epstein is not going to go to trial. He said he won't. Something will happen to stop him going to trial. Probably he will die of a heart attack or a suicide in jail. And look what happened. Exactly what we predicted came to pass. And I think there's many other examples of this to do with Ted Heath. David Icke has been proved right many times. He's never been apologised. No one's ever apologised to him. No one's ever sort of admitted it. But the truth of the matter is he has been vindicated. There's been other examples. I mean, just Google conspiracy theories proven true. You'll see the Hillsborough disaster. What did we say about it? We said that there was criminal negligence that killed all those people in that football stadium. There's Jimmy Savile. You know, people were talking about Jimmy Savile years ago, and then everyone thought, "Oh, you're nuts! Come off it." The BBC wouldn't allow someone to abuse children.
I mean, there's somebody for me, and somebody that regarded himself as like a wizard. I mean, if you're wanting to look for a sorcerer that's worse than Aleister Crowley? I think Jimmy Savile ticks that box right away.
Good. These people are 10 times worse than Aleister. I mean, I say Aleister Crowley never really did anything particularly bad, but you have people in government and in state institutions, in the entertainment industry, in high finance, carrying out sexual abuse of children, things like that. It's murder, blackmail. Do you know that the MPs in the House of Commons? I was looking at the criminal record of MPs. Just Google criminal records of MPs. Considering there's only 600 of these guys, the rates of criminal records are probably in the House of Commons. And if that was translated to the population at large, we'd be experiencing a crime spree in this country like we've never ever seen or imagined before.
I'm surprised.
They're utter cads. They're a bunch of cads.
They've turned their criminal days now into days filled with watching porn on government machines, because anytime that they go and investigate and look into the use of government computers, you find that most of their working day, they're looking at porn. Go and Google it, folks. Not me making this up. Google it. But I find it quite interesting. We've come almost full circle tonight, because we started off talking about a fire at Boleskine House, and we also brought up the fact that in 1904, very spooky when I found this out today, but in Aleister Crowley's The Book of the Law, he wrote this: "But your holy place shall be untouched through the centuries, though with fire and sword it be burnt down and shattered, yet an invisible house there standeth." It's almost as if Aleister Crowley predicted what was going to happen to Boleskine House 115 years before it happened. And then Ben just mentioned a moment ago how we ourselves, along with everyone else listening tonight and all of the alternative media, we turned into prophets, right? Because we were able to look into the crystal ball and tell you exactly what was going to happen to Jeffrey Epstein. So we have come full circle, and we've gone from the burning of Boleskine to the blazing of the Amazon. Well, I'm liking this, Ben. I'm liking it.
It seems strange, these things, as we said, these things are connected, and it's almost like subconsciously in the course of this 2-hour program, we have ourselves created a single narrative for all the subjects we've talked about this evening.
Yes, it's that golden thread of woo that strings it all together. And not only that, we've had the icing on the cake. We've had whistles. You enjoy your little cameo appearance today, John?
I have, Kev. Thanks very much. Honestly, it's been a pleasure, Kev.
Always a pleasure, John. Always a pleasure. And where can people find your work, Ben? Let them know.
Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. The best place to go is hapanwo-voice.blogspot.co.uk. You can find links to my YouTube channel, my own radio shows, and my books, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, and all its 3 sequels, the Roswell trilogy. If you like Area 51 and Roswells and crash retrievals and things like that, you'll love those books, because they're fictional representations of those very things in novel form. So do get a copy of those and enjoy them.
And your YouTube channel, you do live streams like we do here. You're just starting to use Streamlabs, so
yeah, it's OBS like yourself. I'm trying to get used to that, which is I find very useful. It seems to be pretty good. It's got a few problems, but I do videos as often as I can. I put them up on my YouTube channel, Ben the JR Porter, and there's links on the Hapanwo blog to that as well. So check out my videos. I've got quite a few, go back several years, so check those out as well.
Awesome stuff. And for everyone out there, remember to check the Kev Baker Show YouTube channel. I was on with Scotty Lopez on Saturday. Then we had the Sunday session with Joe Joseph yesterday. 2 really, really good shows. And of course, I'll be here for the rest of the week. Still waiting on a couple of guests getting back to me. I hope they do, because you're going to love this. It's going to trigger a lot of people out there, because as you can see, if you follow me on social media, I have been triggering a lot of people lately. If it's bringing on mediums, maybe it's talking about Crowley, maybe it's bringing Ryan Gable onto the show to get his deeper occult knowledge. It just seems to be that Kev Baker has got this uncanny knack of rubbing people up the wrong way right now, but that's okay. Do you know why? Because that might just be the impetus that somebody needs to shake them out their comfort zone. Maybe something I say will anger them enough where they'll go to prove me wrong, only to find, uh-oh, Kev was telling me the truth. So if Kev was telling me the truth about that, what else have I got wrong? And you see how it all leads to your growing and understanding and learning. It's all about you, folks. It really is. And whatever we all believe or disbelieve and agree on or disagree on, we all have to really come together. We really, really do, because what is it that these elites that we talk about all the time, what is it they want to do? They want to divide and conquer. And here we are, a one group of people that say we're determined to find the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't what we expect it to be. Most of the time, it's nowhere near as exciting as we would like it to be, but we have to be true to that word. We have to be all about the truth. And how we get there, well, that's all part of the fun, right? Join Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew after the break. I'll be back tomorrow right here on tfrlive.com. Until then, wherever you are, make it TFR and over to Whistles.
Didn't touch that dial.
There we go, folks. We're still live on YouTube right now for about 2 minutes before I turn on my roboto porn music. I'm told my music sounds like robot porn music, which I don't watch robot porn, so anyone who thinks that, really, maybe you need to watch some new movies. I don't know. But Ben, it's been great having you here today, man.
So, it's been great to be on the show again, Kev. It really is. I really great, and it's great Johnny was here too. And thanks to everyone who's been watching as well.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Everyone on YouTube, you are absolutely awesome. Awesome. It's been great to see different sides of the Crowley debate as well going on in there today. Because I always like to go to the other side of the story, or go to the bit that we don't know most about, Ben. It's easy for us to demonise people like Crowley, or go for the negative slant on any story. Seems to be, that pays in alternative media to go negative. But I like to look at all sides of things, and I think that's the only way that you can build a truer picture of any topic.
That's what I try to do. I try to remain as objective as I can, and I accept that sometimes you could always be wrong about things. I mean, the alien autopsy situation is more than anything else now has taught me that. It's taught me that one of the most fateful words you can utter is the words "case closed," and then after you said that, you never look at the thing again. But of course, it always comes back to bite you, and sometimes you have to reassess even really the oldest and coldest of cases.
But you've got to keep an open mind on everything. But not to the point where your brain falls out. Johnny Whistles, last word from you before we sign off from YouTube, Johnny.
Yeah, it's been great, Kev. It's been great to be back here, honestly. I'm looking forward to maybe some nights that you've not got a guest, Kev, for a second half, and I maybe join you.
Awesome. Sounds good to me. So for another night, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in. Love all of you out there on YouTube. We've got Tessa, Queen Goddess, Brian, Mermaid King, Kristen. We've got Julie, Unite the Clans. Oh, I like that one. Mr. Stoneley and so many other people. You've really helped to make this a brilliant 50th anniversary show for Big Ben. If I'd known it was 50 shows, Ben, I'd have brought a cake.
Oh, yeah, I should have got some champagne or something.
You see?
We'll keep making them.
We are out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Keep your eyes open for my next live stream. Might be tomorrow afternoon. Don't know. We'll be back tomorrow at some point. Keep your eye on the bell. Ring it. You'll get a notification.